We're talking about all the different ways that you can do applique on the BERNINA 880. And next up is the blanket stitch. Now I've been looking all over my BERNINA Stitching Cosmos online course quilt here, looking for an example of blanket stitch and realizing that that is a stitch that I've kind of graduated past because there's so many other stitches that are great for appliques or our embellishments. Because we've stitched them all out, we realize there's hundreds of other stitches that can be done. But I am going to show you how to do the blanket stitch applique with the built-in stitches and a few tricks along the trade. So this is like the closest one that I found. We had used it with the circular sewing attachment. This is a pin tuck block that we do. This is actually bobbin work and other stitches with heavy thread in the bobbin, which is something we go into. Rufflers and other stitches. Oh my gosh, we have so much fun. Here's even fringe. Who would have thought you can make your own fringe on a BERNINA with a specialty foot? So blanket stitch applique is what a lot of people just think that that's the stitch that you have to use. And it's a great place to start if this is new to you, but realizing that there's so many other choices in your machine that you could use and kind of up your game so it doesn't look like everybody else's same project, same results. Now we were just playing around with the satin stitch and stitch length options. We were using stitch number 1354 in the quilting menu and adjusting the needle position, which is something we're going to do with the blanket stitch appliques in this machine too. So I'm going to just use another side here, show how we can pivot and turn a corner, and look at some of the other options. I think this stitch was the one I just showed you on that quilt. So you can see in the quilt menu, so that's this one right here. So if you're on a straight stitch, touch the quilt block and you'll have all those great stitches. So our blanket stitch is traditionally 1329. That's the most common one that people use, and 1330 if you're looking for a little bit bolder version because it actually stitches multiple times. Remember stitching out these stitches like with your stitch book, and we have a link below that you can learn on how to stitch out. The ultimate stitch book would have given you the idea of what these stitches look like, and so you'd have a better idea. Now there's quite a few stitches in the quilt menu. Notice there are 6 pages here that we can scroll through. There's even more options, but you can touch the little arrow here and it will open up that whole entire screen, and now everything will fit on just 2 pages. So if you're kind of searching for maybe some other stitches, look at that option. Here's even one too, 1345. It looks like it's kind of flip-flopped, but it might have another way that it stitches. So just because I haven't stitched it out lately doesn't mean it's identical to the one I just showed you here. So it might have a little different formation when it actually stitches out. But we're going to start with 1329. I do have the open toe foot selected. That's foot number 20C. So that's the foot that comes with your machine. Great for seeing where you're going. So trust me, that is great. But let me have you look at something close. This stitch is actually usually not very symmetrical. You do notice that the edge of this stitch, the straight part coming down, usually needs to sit right along the raw edge of the fabric. And notice that it's kind of over here. So it's not really a centered stitch, but you know what you can do is you can move the needle position all the way to the far right side, and then you'd be able to utilize the inside toe. So I would run this raw edge right inside there, and that would guide the edge of the stitch right where I need it to be. So I am a fan of moving my needle. Now, if you just think that is the greatest thing, which by the way I think is the greatest thing, I always save this setting for my blanket stitches on the machine that I own with those settings. So I'll touch the eye and touch the little picture of a floppy disk. That means I've just overridden the center needle position of the default stitch settings to my favorite needle position. And so it's always there. So when I turn the machine off and turn it back on and choose this stitch, that's how it comes up. Maybe you like it a little bit wider and a little longer. Maybe that's what you save yours at. You get it perfectly dialed in for the thickness of thread and maybe what you're going around, and that is the perfect setting for you. Go into the eye, touch save again, and it will save the new settings. Little trick on this, a lot of times I like to keep my length the same number as my width. So right now they're not totally in proportion to each other. So if I made my stitch length a little longer, you don't have to, but that is just what, if you like things very linear, you want those, the length of the stitch to be the same as the width of the stitch. So 3.5, 3.5, that would be an option for you. That is a super easy way and place to start. And let me show you how it's going to look on fabric. Did you notice on screen it always shows you with a little white dot where the needle's going to start within a stitch? And obviously when it comes right down here, you can see that the needle is all the way to the far right, and I can move my fabric to be just there. Again, this would be something I would recommend practicing so you have a better idea before you get started how to get things lined up. But can you see how perfect it is just to keep the fabric rolling right down the edge of the foot instead of just kind of hanging out in somewhere in the middle and you having to guess where that is. So this is how it looks. Now here's a nice thing. If you have set the machine so the needle stops down and the foot pops up for hovering or turning a corner, that's going to really save you a lot of time. I'll show you in just a second how to set that if your machine is currently not doing that and it's just staying down for you. But what I want to do is, since I'm getting close to a corner, show you what I do. Because you can never kind of tell a stitch when the corner is coming, but you can help it along. So you're seeing how long that stitch is, and I can definitely tell I can get one more. So let's go ahead. And I'll be stopping on that right side because that makes sense for when I actually do need to pivot. But I feel like that next little jump here, I'm going to show you there, to that corner is going to be a little bit more than just one stitch worth. So here's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to actually bring my needle up and then move the fabric until I can position that needle right down at the corner. So I'm kind of like finessing where that is. So I'm going to just hand turn the needle where I want it to actually come down, and then that way I know that it's where it needs to be. Let it finish that stitch, lift up, and then go ahead and stitch forward through the stitch. Now that will take a little practice because sometimes instead of it being here, oh, perfect. Here, how it might be a little long, it can sometimes be a little short. So you might just have to kind of finesse how it's approaching that corner or turning point that you know is going to come whether you want it or not. I've also been known to kind of hold my fabric back, like maybe not let it stitch so quickly. I've also been known to kind of help it through just a little bit so it can kind of get there faster. It's all about the stitch and how big the repeat is and learning about where it's going to be starting and stopping. So at any given time, I always know where the next stitch is going to go. Like right now, the next stitch is going to come forward. After it's here, the next stitch is going to come in. So you always know where the stitch is going. It's kind of like a dance. You have to kind of get used to it. But then when you are done, remember you can use one of the locking stitch functions, one of the buttons right here on the front, and you can actually lock it off and then finish it with a cut. So you can definitely get everything where you want it to be, exactly to the look that you want. And that's how easy it is to do blanket stitch applique on the BERNINA 880. If you'd like to have that little hover feature, all you need to do is go into the settings, touch the straight and zigzag function, touch the picture where the hand is touching a button, and the button we're actually fixing or adjusting is the needle down option button. So right here, if yours is on the first one, it means the needle stops down and the foot stays down. But I was on the second one where the needle goes down and the foot pops up just a little bit. Perfect for pivoting, positioning, and even letting fabric kind of relax when it's kind of bunching up in front of the foot. When you're done, just touch the X and it'll go right back to where you were. If this video has been helpful, make sure you give us a thumbs up, a like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Plus, if you're interested in the BERNINA Stitching Cosmos online course, we have all those links, including 10 videos you can watch for free in the description below.